Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and I'm 82 years old and riding my E-Trike made by Lectric XP, and telling my life story. Yeah, I'm enjoying every minute of telling my story. If you're interested in getting caught up from the beginning, which I doubt that you are, but if you are, click on my smiling face here on the page. I got to go across the road, and that'll take you to my YouTube homepage. You get to my YouTube homepage, click on playlists, and look into playlists and find life story. And you can start on the day I was born. Anyway, right now I'm up to the late 60s, early 70s, and I'm working as a school teacher, teaching electronics. By this time, my amateur radio station has improved a lot. I've bought some equipment, repaired it so it worked. That's always the way I did things. And so I got a nice station. Also, in the meantime, I've helped train my electronic students enough. I've got 3 or 4 of them that have their amateur radio license. And so we started a amateur radio club station at the school. Had a nice antenna on the roof, and so things are going along. I was also busy on the what they call, it's not the internet, it's just in amateur radio. So at the end of the year, my principal came up to me with all the things I was doing with radio, and he said, you think you could get a license to set up a non-commercial educational station here at the high school? And I thought, oh, I'd be glad to give it a try. Now, back in those days, everything had tubes, no transistors, and so you had to be licensed to to do much with a transmitter, especially one for broadcasting. And they had 3 levels of licenses. If you were third class, then you could actually sit in the studio and run the station. It took a second class to be what they called an engineer. In other words, a guy that worked on the equipment. And then if you got the first class, you could work on any kind of radios and work at a television station. And so those were the levels that I could shoot for. In order to have a station at the school, I had to have a second class license. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. So that summer, I set up a schedule every morning, 8 o'clock, out in my little ham shack, studying the books that I needed to study for in order to know what they wanted me to know to get the license. Okay, we're going to go up here and check things out. So I'd study till noon, and then I would take my kids swimming and spend the rest of the day enjoying my summer vacation. A lot of traffic now. Anyway, so every morning I get up, 8 o'clock, study, noon, family time, all through the summer. Now, back then, things were so much different, but if you wanted to take the tests that I needed to take, you had to go to the federal building in Seattle, Washington. By the way, I was in Washington. I was living in Pasco, Washington, teaching high school there. And so I had to go to Seattle, and my folks lived over there. And so I decided, well, I think I've got it studied up enough. So late in the summer, I packed up the family and we went over. We spent a couple days with my folks. And then the day that I needed to go down and take the test, the night before I took the test, I thought, I wonder what they've got on the first class license, because I had the books for that. And so I looked at what they had and studied for an hour or so on the first class. And I really didn't need that, but I thought, well, maybe I take the test, maybe I'll get the first class. So next morning I drove into Seattle and went to the Federal Building. I was there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon taking FCC exams. And I was tired when I got through. So they collected my tests, and I went home and visited with my family. That's kind of a steep drop. Visited with my family, and then went back to Pasco, and was waiting for my license to come in the mail, whatever it was. Hopefully it was more than the third class, because you took the third class test, and then you turned it in, took the second class test, and then so forth. So I was waiting to see which one I got, because they'll give you whatever, what the highest was. So the mail came one day, and there was an FCC letter there. I never will forget, when I opened the letter, my hands were shaking because I had never had a commercial radio license before. And if I could just get the second class, then I could work on radios, like in aircraft and stuff like that. So I opened up the letter, opened up the envelope, unfolded the letter, and I had passed the first class license. I was shaking. I was so excited and so nervous. I know, not everybody's weird like me, but that meant I could work on all kinds of stuff and get paid for it. And beyond just amateur radio. Amateur radio, you can't do anything to make money, and it's against the law. So, so I was pretty excited. Well, school started up, and the first day you have a faculty meeting. And so at the faculty meeting, we had a new principal. Now, last year's principal wanted a radio station. So this principal, I went up to him and I said, Mr. Gregson wanted to have a non-commercial radio educational station here at the school, and I studied up. I've got the license for it. You want to continue with that? And he said, no, I don't think we want to do that. If you study all summer for something and then they say, nah, never mind. Well, that was a little discouraging, but that's okay, because that's not the end of the story. We'll go down this street here. And so school started, I was teaching my classes, and in all my electronics classes, I was telling the story of how I'd studied and got my commercial license, and I could actually work at a TV station and all that. So in one of my electronics classes, when I got, the class was over and I had told that story, the student came up and he says, I sweep the floors down at KVEW television, and they need a switcher. I had no idea what he was talking about. But what a switcher is he's the guy that runs the station he's actually like a DJ, but he's not a DJ. He just makes sure all the commercials are lined up to go, all that kind of stuff. He said, so, you could use your license and make a few extra bucks doing that. And so I said, okay. So, coming to a street here, stop sign, we're okay. So, I went down to the station, and I said, I understand you've got an opening, and they said, yeah, $3.10 an hour, and that wasn't a lot of money. I mean, even after all the years, the wages were normally higher than that, but that's what they were willing to pay me. And so I thought, and then you would work, I would work from, let's see, the sun, I would work from 8 in the evening until midnight. So I took the job. There had a guy came in, the guy that was running it at that time, trained me for a couple of nights, and I was on my own. Now back then, everything was different. In fact, the reason local stations went off at midnight was because you had to have somebody there for the station to be on the air, and it wasn't profitable for a local station to stay on. Now everything, you don't even have to have a guy there for the stations. Everything is just run automatically. And so I ran it from 8 till midnight. I got lots of stories about the tape machines. The commercials were recorded on 2-inch tape, if you know what I'm talking about. Nowadays, nobody uses tape recorders, but anyway, if you know what a cassette player is, that's 1/4-inch tape. So the tape that machines that they used back then were 2-inch tape, 2 inches wide, and to get all the stuff on it. And then you had to queue up the the tape ready to go when the commercial came on, and you knew exactly what time the commercial was going to come on. So 7 seconds before the commercial was to begin, you started the tape machine so that it would be ready, be all queued up and ready to play the tape that you got on there. It took it 7 seconds to get all the stuff going right before you wanted to put it on. And so that was my job, just every night. And then they liked me really well, and as it turns out, their chief engineer, they kept going off the air. And the chief engineer was a young kid, nice guy, but what happened was he had gone to a school, a 30-day school, where they train you to get the license, the first-class license. You can pass the test. You don't do anything. You just memorize the answers and take the test. And so he didn't have any idea how to tune up a transmitter and all that stuff. So and by the way, back in those days, everything was run by tubes. Tubes were like light bulbs. They had a filament in there, and then that filament would start to get weak because like a light bulb finally burns out. Well, the tubes did that, and so as the tubes were getting weak, you had to keep adjusting everything at the transmitter. Well, he didn't know that, and so the transmitter kept going off the air, and then you'd have to run up. The transmitter was up on a hill, and so you had to drive up, 6 or 7 miles, 8 miles up the hill, and then the transmitter was in this building at the top of the hill. So one night he asked me, he said, can you show me, can you come up there after sign off and we'll see if we can get this thing to work right? And I said, yeah. So I went up there and I looked at what was going on, and now I'm not going to go like my dad did. I'm not going to go through all the details, but you had 2 things that you needed to tune on a transmitter to make it work right. And so I went through it, and by the way, they have what they call, it's several stages, like 5 stages till you get to the real transmitter. They call them can't remember what they called. Anyway, a preamp. So they'd start with this one, put out a stronger signal, go to the next one, stronger signal, finally get a strong enough signal to feed into that great big huge transmitter tube, which was like about 4 or 5 feet tall. So anyway, showed them how. I went through. We almost burned up the final tube because by the time we were halfway tuning up all the preamps, he looked over and the output needle for the transmitter was pegged. And so he had to crank things down over there. Well, anyway, so I showed him how. Then he knew how to keep the station on the air. So that that really impressed the owner of the station. It was a substation of the one in Yakima. The guy that owned the station also, he was the owner, had a station in Yakima and then this station. And he was so impressed that he came down to visit me while I was working because of all the things I helped out with. So anyway, that's how I got into television broadcasting. But that's not the end of the story. That's just kind of like the beginning. But got the license, was able to work at a TV station, and made $3.10 an hour. So I want to thank you for watching my video, and God bless.